There will be a major earthquake in the New Madrid seismic zone, centered about 160 miles south of St. Louis.
Earthquakes in Tennessee yesterday. Is the St. Louis area next? Seismologists say it is not a matter of if one will hit, it's a matter of when.
The New Madrid fault line, a sleeping giant beneath the heartland of America, holds the promise of an earthquake of unimaginable magnitude. Unseen and unfelt, this impending catastrophe remains unnoticed by the multitude engaged in the routine of their everyday existence, blind to the shadow of devastation that hovers near. But what secrets lie buried beneath its calm surface, and what controversy swirls around the predictions of its awakening? Join us as we venture into the hidden depths of the American Midwest, where beneath its quiet exterior lies a lurking threat, ready to unleash chaos at any moment. Earth's subtle warnings about the upcoming danger. Experts caution about a looming massive earthquake hiding within the New Madrid seismic zone, quietly nestled beneath America's heartland. This potential disaster remains unseen, unnoticed by most people going about their daily lives, unaware of the impending danger. Amid debates among scientists and doubters, a troubling question hangs over us. When will the ground beneath us violently shake again, reminding us of the horrors of the past? Chapter 1 takes us back to the mysterious events of the 1811 earthquake, delving into history's depths to uncover its secrets. Imagine waking up on December 16, 1811, as the first light of dawn illuminates the land. Suddenly, without warning, the earth begins to shake with unprecedented force. From bustling cities to quiet villages, tremors spread across the nation, even reaching places like Asheville, North Carolina. Picture the fear and confusion as people face this unexpected upheaval. Buildings sway, furniture tumbles, and cherished belongings crash to the ground, revealing nature's awesome power. Although the initial tremors cause little physical damage, their emotional toll is immense. Many experience their first encounter with the terrifying force of nature. In the quake's aftermath, stories of survival and community resilience emerge. Neighbors come together to help one another, showing solidarity in adversity. Yet beneath the surface, anxiety lingers as rumors of impending disaster circulate. As weeks pass, uncertainty hangs in the air, fueled by speculation and fear. Aftershocks serve as reminders of human vulnerability, prompting soul-searching and existential questions. Amid the chaos, communities find strength in unity, rebuilding and moving forward together. But it's the earthquake's far-reaching impact that captures the nation's attention. Reports flood in from distant places like Charleston and New York, even reaching across the Atlantic. The relentless tremors persist for months, leaving communities shaken and fearful. News of devastation spreads from the Mississippi Valley to the newly acquired Louisiana Territory, instilling dread far and wide. The winter of 1811 and 1812 marked a time when nature unleashed its fury upon America's heartland, with more than 2,000 powerful earthquakes shaking the ground. These relentless tremors left communities shattered and confused, struggling to recover from massive destruction. Even after more than 200 years, the mystery of what caused these earthquakes remains unsolved, puzzling scientists and experts. In geological history, the events of that winter stand out as a strange puzzle, challenging what we know about how the Earth's crust works. Usually, we expect earthquakes to happen more on the shaky edges of tectonic plates, like on the West Coast. But in America's middle, it's different, making it hard for geologists to understand. Scientists have tried to figure out why the New Madrid earthquakes happened, but they haven't found clear answers. Some think old fault lines hidden below the ground could be to blame, while others wonder if volcanic activity or underground currents played a role. But one thing is sure, the New Madrid area is still a risk for big earthquakes. Even though there haven't been as many strong earthquakes there since 1811 and 1812, people who live there know the danger is real and they need to be ready. For folks in the heartland, the fear of a big earthquake isn't just something they hear about. It's something they live with every day. They follow strict building rules and make plans for what to do in an emergency, always ready for the worst. Scientists are working hard to understand the New Madrid area better, hoping to learn from its past and maybe prevent future disasters. But as they dig deeper into the Earth's secrets, they're finding that some questions don't have easy answers. The traditional idea of how tectonic plates move doesn't explain everything, especially when it comes to earthquakes happening within the plates. This makes scientists rethink what they know about how the Earth works. They keep studying the New Madrid area, hoping to uncover more clues about what's happening deep underground. Underneath us, the ground is quietly shaking in the New Madrid area. While many don't notice, it's a sign of trouble below. It's not just there. Other parts of America's middle are shaking too, showing how unpredictable the Earth's crust can be. The looming earthquake threat in America's heartland. Since the careful study of shaking in the New Madrid area started in the 1980s and 1990s, a steady beat of shaking has rumbled underground. While many might not notice these shakings, they hint at the trouble below us. The New Madrid zone isn't alone in the shaking. Other parts inside the North American plate also pulse with similar shaking. History reminds us of the dangers hiding beneath peaceful-looking places. The inside of the North American plate, away from the shaky edges where earthquakes often happen, has seen its share of big events. From the strong 5.8 earthquake in Virginia in 2011 to the scary 7.3 earthquake in Charleston in 1886, these shaking events show how unpredictable the Earth's crust can be. But none have scared people as much as the New Madrid earthquakes of 1811 and 1812. These shakings were as bad as the big earthquake that hit San Francisco in 1906 and left a big mark on American history. Even though they happened far from the shaky edges where we usually see big earthquakes, the New Madrid zone and places like it could be very dangerous. The United States Geological Survey, USGS, which studies earthquake risks, tells us what might happen in the future. They say there's a scary 25.5 to 40% chance of a magnitude 6 or higher earthquake hitting the area in the next 50 years. Even scarier are the chances of even bigger earthquakes that could cause even more damage. As we think about these scary numbers, it's clear we still have a lot to learn about earthquakes. We understand why earthquakes happen on shaky edges pretty well, but we're still figuring out why they happen inside plates. Even though scientists have studied this for a long time, we're still not sure exactly what causes these big shakings. But even with all this uncertainty, one thing is for sure: we need to be ready for earthquakes. People who live in the New Madrid zone and other places with lots of shaking need to listen to experts and get ready for big earthquakes. We can make strong building rules and good plans for what to do if an earthquake happens, and that can help save lives. But just being ready isn't enough. We also need to learn more about how earthquakes work. Only by studying and working together can we understand why the Earth shakes and how to stop bad things from happening. Even though we've learned a lot about the New Madrid zone, there's still so much we don't know. We know about some of the special things in the area, but we don't have a good plan for how to know when an earthquake might happen. Without a good plan, we can't keep people safe from earthquakes, and that's a big problem. Moving out west was hard, even though it seemed like a good idea for a fresh start. Settlers faced floods and food shortages, but still hoped for better lives. How New Madrid was on the brink of destruction. Despite the appeal of getting free land and dreams of a better life, living out in the West was tough. Settlers had to deal with problems like floods and not having enough food as they moved into wild places. But even with these challenges, many Americans decided to move out west, hoping for better opportunities and nicer places to live. As the 1800s began, lots of people started living in New Madrid, making it an important town in the growing area. Found by the Mississippi River, it became a busy port where trade and business thrived. Many boats sailed on its waters, carrying goods and people between St. Louis and the Gulf Coast, making the town rich. But this peaceful time didn't last, thanks to big changes in politics. In 1800, Spain gave Louisiana back to France without anyone knowing. This happened when Europe was having lots of problems, and Napoleon Bonaparte was trying to make his empire bigger. With all this going on, Napoleon had to deal with running a faraway colony. Even though Napoleon wanted to make a big American empire in the New World at first, he changed his mind when he saw how hard it was to manage Louisiana. With Europe still having lots of fights and not enough money, Napoleon thought it was best to sell Louisiana. So, in 1803, the United States surprised everyone by wanting to buy Louisiana. They wanted to get more land and control the Mississippi River. After talking, the United States bought all of Louisiana from France for $15 million. This big deal was great news for the United States, but it changed everything for the people living in New Madrid and Louisiana. In just a moment, their lives were different, and they went from being part of faraway empires to being part of a new country. The Louisiana Purchase started a new time in American history, with the country wanting to grow bigger and take over more land. For the people in New Madrid, it was exciting, but also scary, as they had to figure out how to fit into this new country. Even though the United States was now in charge, things from the past stuck around, and the town still had Spanish and French culture in it. The years of being ruled by other countries left a big mark on the place, shaping how people saw themselves and what they wanted for the future. The Louisiana Purchase, seen as a big success for America, made New Madrid part of the growing country. But soon after, the town faced a big tragedy. Just 8 years later, a bunch of powerful earthquakes hit, wrecking everything and making people really sad. Looking back in history, we find stories from people who lived through these scary earthquakes. William Pierce was one of them, sailing on the Ohio and Mississippi rivers with his boats. He tells us how scary it was to feel the boats shaking so hard and the ground splitting up. In the middle of the night, Pierce and his crew woke up to the boats shaking like crazy, warning them that something terrible was about to happen. They tried to figure out what was going on while the ground kept shaking and trees shook so much it sounded like they were fighting. It felt like the world was falling apart. When the sun came up, they saw how bad things really were. The ground was still shaking and big cracks were opening up everywhere. Pierce and his friends realized they were in big trouble. But even with all the chaos, they couldn't help but feel amazed at how powerful nature could be. The river they used to sail on, which gave them food and life, was now raging with anger, throwing up mud and stuff from below. Old trees, which had been underwater for years, were ripped out, showing just how strong the earth's anger could be. All Pierce and his friends could do was watch in silence, too scared to talk. Everything they knew was changing so fast because of the earthquakes. The Louisiana Purchase changed everything for people in New Madrid and Louisiana, but it was just the start of their story. Soon, a terrible disaster would hit New Madrid, changing it forever. When Mississippi got insanely mad. As the ground shook violently and the earth let out its anger, everything around seemed to fall apart. Deadly gases came out from deep within the earth, making big holes that swallowed up anything in their way. The whole day was filled with non-stop shaking, interrupted only by loud explosions that sounded like scary thunder, reminding everyone of the big disaster happening. For those sailing on the dangerous Mississippi River, every moment felt like they were about to face danger. The river's water bubbled and boiled so much, showing how angry the earth was underneath. Their boat, fragile and lost in all the chaos, felt like it could break apart any moment, with their future hanging on a thin thread. The destruction didn't stop as big parts of the riverbank fell into the water, taking everything with them. Even the oldest trees, strong and tall, shook hard before they were torn out of the ground by the powerful earthquakes. Some trees flew through the air like dangerous weapons, causing even more damage. In all the chaos, small islands vanished without a trace, swallowed by the angry river. It seemed like the whole landscape was changing right in front of their eyes, with destruction and confusion everywhere. But in the midst of all this chaos, there were moments of eerie silence, as if the earth was getting ready for the next big shake. It was during these quiet times that people saw just how much damage had been done, with everything around them in ruins. As days passed and the shaking didn't stop, people living in the Mississippi Valley felt scared and unsure about what would happen next. Each new shake reminded them how fragile life could be when nature got angry. Looking back at history, we hear stories from people who went through all this. One story from December 16th tells us what it was like for many people living in the northern Mississippi Valley at that time. But that was just the start of the scary times. In the weeks that came after, there were 2 more huge earthquakes, each as strong or even stronger than the first ones. This series of big shakes, never seen before, showed how complicated and powerful the Earth's forces could be deep below. The last earthquake, on February 7th of the next year, was the worst, leaving behind a path of destruction that went on for miles and miles. With a strength between 7.5 to 7.8 on the Richter scale, it caused chaos and destruction everywhere, shaking the earth to its core. The big earthquake had the most impact along the Mississippi River, changing the land forever with its strong force. The river, which was very important for many towns, turned into a wild and destructive force because of the shaking ground. After the earthquake, people who saw it happen talked about how everything looked destroyed. Buildings fell down like sandcastles because of the strong shaking. Whole parts of towns became piles of broken stuff, with buildings all twisted and broken. But the worst part happened under the river. When the ground shook, big cracks opened up in the riverbed, swallowing everything nearby. Islands disappeared, the riverbanks collapsed, and everything got sucked into the water. Because of the earthquake, the river's path changed forever. New parts of the land were made and old ones got filled with stuff from the earthquake. The water, which used to flow smoothly, now moved all rough and angry, surrounded by broken things from the land. For the people who depended on the river, the earthquake was a total disaster. Their boats got wrecked or carried away by the strong water, and the people on them were lost. People who caught fish found nothing in their nets because the shaking water took everything away. Farmers saw their fields get covered in water, ruining all their crops in no time. In the weeks and months after the earthquake, the people who lived there struggled to understand how bad things had gotten. Houses were broken, towns were ruined, and everything felt like it was falling apart. But even in all the destruction, there were times when people worked together to fix things and find hope again. Lots of people came from far away to help, and slowly things started getting better. The marks left by the earthquake began to heal as the people who lived near the Mississippi River found a new way to move forward after so much damage. The big earthquake changed the Mississippi River a lot. It's hard to know exactly how much, but it had a really big impact. One story from a person on a boat tells how scary it was to see everything happening. He heard loud noises as trees fell down, and the ground shook under him. He even saw a big waterfall because of the earthquake. When he got to New Madrid, he saw that the town was totally broken. It looked like it was sinking, and nobody was there anymore. The place, which used to be full of life, was now all in ruins, showing how powerful nature could be when it's unleashed. The devastation of New Madrid after the big earthquakes left people homeless and hopeless. The once bustling town now lay in ruins, with empty streets and broken buildings, reminding everyone of the tragedy that had struck. How New Madrid revived the city. After the big earthquakes, New Madrid was left in ruins, with empty streets and broken buildings. People who used to live there now lived in temporary camps outside the town, feeling hopeless about what happened. Most of the boats, about 30 of them, were destroyed during the earthquakes, showing how strong they were. Many boatmen died because of the shaking ground in the wild river. New Madrid, being very close to where the strongest tremors happened, got hit the worst. The town was already struggling from the first earthquakes, and now it was even worse because of this new one. Eliza Bryan, who was a school teacher, stayed in New Madrid to help others when the big earthquake hit on February 7th. The shaking was so bad that buildings broke and fell down. It was really scary for Eliza and everyone else there. As the ground shook, the river's water went away, leaving boats stuck on the ground for a bit. But soon after, the water came back really fast and strong, flooding the town and making everything worse. During all this chaos, Eliza and others tried to stay safe and help each other. But many couldn't escape from their broken homes and got stuck under the rubble. Even though things looked really bad, there were moments when people helped each other and stayed strong. Eliza was one of those people who kept everyone hopeful and tried to rebuild the town. In the days and weeks after the big earthquake hit New Madrid, Eliza stayed strong and brave. She didn't let fear take over, and she was determined to help rebuild the community. When the ground shook, the river's water went away, leaving some boats stuck on the ground for a little while. But soon the water came back very strong, sweeping boats and other things into nearby creeks and flooding the town. After the earthquake, the land looked very different, with big cracks and lots of sand and debris everywhere. It was clear that the earthquake had caused a lot of damage. The earthquakes didn't just affect New Madrid. People felt them as far away as Charleston, South Carolina. Even though the earthquakes were really bad, people quickly forgot about them as time passed. But even though people forgot about the earthquakes, The lessons they taught us are still important. We need to remember what happened and be ready for any future disasters. Understanding earthquakes isn't easy. We have to learn a lot about how the earth works and what causes earthquakes. In the Mississippi Valley, the ground is unstable because of all the stuff the Mississippi River left behind over thousands of years. Underneath places like Memphis and New Madrid is a danger. The wet soil can turn into a swamp during earthquakes, called soil liquefaction. This can cause a lot of damage, as seen in the past, like in the New Madrid earthquakes and the Christchurch earthquake. The stealthy threat of wet soil within seismic range. In the long story of the Earth's changes, the ocean plays a big part, especially in the southern United States. About 80 million years ago, this area was under the sea. The place we now call the Mississippi Embayment, near Memphis and New Madrid, went through a lot of big changes over millions of years. It used to be part of a tall mountain range, but later sank underwater. Over time, it filled up with sediment from the Gulf of Mexico and the old Mississippi River. Today, we can see the marks of all these changes in the land. There are layers of sand and clay deep underground. In places like Memphis, the ground isn't solid rock. It's mostly wet sand and mud. This can cause a lot of trouble when there's an earthquake. But there's also a good side to all this. The sand holds a lot of fresh water underground, which is important for cities like Memphis. However, this has caused some problems too. Mississippi got upset with Memphis for taking too much groundwater without asking. This led to a big legal fight, but it was eventually resolved. But there's a danger hiding under the ground too. When there's an earthquake, the wet soil can turn into a thick, unstable mess. This is called soil liquefaction. It's like shaking a jar full of marbles. Everything inside moves around, especially if there's water in there. This turns the ground into a dangerous swamp that can swallow up buildings, roads, and bridges. During big earthquakes, the ground can turn into a thick liquid that sucks everything down. Buildings might sink or tilt, and things like pipes and cables can float up from below. Roads and bridges that used to be strong can collapse, causing landslides and a lot of damage. The New Madrid earthquakes are famous for causing a lot of liquefaction. People from history talked about water and sand shooting out of the ground like fountains. These are called sand blows, and they happen when the pressure underground gets too high and forces the liquefied mix to burst out. The 2011 earthquake in Christchurch, New Zealand, is a sad example of how bad liquefaction can be. Even though the quake wasn't super strong, it caused a lot of damage because of liquefaction. As the ground shook, the wet soil under Christchurch turned into a dangerous trap. Liquefaction happens when the ground is full of water and becomes like a liquid instead of staying solid. This made buildings sink, roads bend, and things break, making the quake even worse. People who saw it happen described it as really scary. Buildings fell down, roads twisted, and in some places, entire neighborhoods sank into the ground because of liquefaction. The aftermath of the earthquake brought widespread destruction and sorrow. Houses crumbled, businesses were ruined, and essential services stopped working. Many people died, and thousands were hurt or had nowhere to live. The earthquake caused huge financial problems too, with billions of dollars needed to fix everything. Rebuilding homes, roads, and businesses would be a heavy burden for the city and the country for a long time. One scary thing about the Christchurch earthquake was how unpredictable the liquefaction was. Even though people knew earthquakes could happen there, nobody expected the ground to turn into mud like it did. This showed that we need to learn more about earthquakes and be ready for them. After the quake, there were reports of buildings sinking, roads breaking, and whole neighborhoods becoming unlivable. The liquefaction made solid ground turn into a dangerous swamp that swallowed up cars, buses, and even people. The damage was massive, costing billions of dollars to fix. The city's buildings and roads were wrecked, and lots of people had nowhere to live because their homes were destroyed. A strange thing that happened because of the liquefaction was the appearance of sand boils. These were like little sand volcanoes that popped up all over, showing how powerful the earth can be. In some places, the ground was so shaky that buildings had to be torn down because they were too dangerous to stay up. Many people lost their lives, and even though others tried to help, it was hard to fix everything. For the people of Christchurch, the memory of the earthquake will stay with them for a long time. But even in the darkest times, there were stories of people coming together to help each other. Looking at the ground, we see how fragile our lives can be. The solid ground we walk on can suddenly become unstable and dangerous. We need to learn from the past and be ready for more earthquakes in the future. Echoes from the past invite us to uncover hidden secrets. How ancient tremors guide our current earthquake safety measures. As we explore deeper into the mystery, we uncover a landscape marked by the powerful forces of nature. The earth itself shows signs of the chaos, with big holes and cracks, reminding us of the violent shaking that once happened here. In the large area called the Mississippian Embayment, these sandy eruptions are not unusual. They tell a story of the region's turbulent past. Unlike smaller ones found elsewhere, the eruptions in New Madrid are massive, up to 60 meters wide and nearly a meter thick. These huge dimensions give us a glimpse of the earthquake's incredible power. An old photo shows the aftermath of these huge events, with the land scarred by giant holes. These eruptions happened because of the rising pressure underground, sending water, sand, and debris into the sky and causing a lot of damage. The Mississippian Embayment, where soil can turn to liquid, is like a time bomb waiting to explode. Similar things have happened in other places around the world, like India and Yellowstone, showing us how unpredictable the Earth's fury can be. In southern Italy, the ruins of an ancient Roman city show what happens when the ground turns to liquid. Huge holes formed, a reminder of the terror people faced back then. The New Madrid earthquakes of 1811 and 1812 remind us how unpredictable the Earth can be. These earthquakes didn't just affect the area around them, but caused damage over large distances. The geological features of the eastern United States played a big part in making the New Madrid earthquakes worse. Unlike the western parts of the country, where the crust is thin, the eastern crust is thick and can transmit seismic waves far, making earthquakes more powerful. This difference in the Earth's crust affects how earthquakes spread. In the west, they affect smaller areas, but in the east, they can spread over hundreds of kilometers, causing damage far from where they started. This higher risk in the eastern United States means we need to be ready for earthquakes. Unlike in the West, where people are prepared, many communities in the East aren't ready for big earthquakes. There's work being done to get ready for earthquakes in the eastern United States, but there's still a lot to do. We need to make sure buildings and infrastructure can handle earthquakes, teach people what to do during one, and be ready to respond if they happen. We also need to keep learning about earthquakes in the eastern United States. By understanding more about how they happen and why they're worse here, we can better predict and deal with them in the future. Because many communities in the East aren't prepared for earthquakes, they're at risk of a lot of damage. Unlike in California, where people are ready, eastern communities could face big problems if a major earthquake hits. Diving into the New Madrid seismic zone story makes us wonder, how prepared are we for its next quake? Hit like and subscribe for more stories like this.